shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our own, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
So today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm off to France. So we're doing a loop from Calais to Lille, and then we're going to go from Lille to Roubaix, and then back to Lille, back to Calais. It's Friday currently. We're going to get the ferry in a short while, and then from there, good bit of fun and banter. We're doing this with the club, so it's going to be a club ride. There'll be about 20 of us going, and I've taken my gravel bike again. I'm just waiting for my quality lift.
What's coming down that way? It's not coming down that way.
Well, it's a wet start to our weekend adventure. This was the first time I travelled on a ferry with my bike. It was just a matter of following the thick red line on the road. Check-in was straightforward and we found our lane. Pardon the pun, but I'll say it went swimmingly. There's 26 of us on this bike packing trip. The others we had planned to meet on the other side of the channel, in a cheap and cheerful hotel. In the ferry, all the bikes were secured to one another by an old frame rope, and the bikes were safe. And it was time to relax. And this trip was now well and truly underway. We had to wait until all the vehicles were off the ferry before being permitted to leave. We were then escorted from the ferry direct to the main road. Slipstream! This was meant to be a quick process and all was going well.
Is that you or the Garmin?
Well, until it wasn't.
As long as it don't happen to you.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're not the one with the double puncture before you in this line.
Yeah.
We were then on a short ride into Calais to our hotel where we were due to meet the others. Thankfully, the rain kept away. The accommodation was basic and most of us shared a room. We just had to fight for the one plug socket. Our next task was to go out and eat. We dressed as we were instructed by our master of ceremonies by wearing a shocking shirt. Food was at the Chinese buffet I'd previously visited. Once again I'd end up eating too much, but a great night was had by all and we were fueled ready for the following day's ride. So according to the Garmin today we've got Calais, Ypres and Lille. So a 90-mile day, nearly 91 miles, so we'll have a look and see what we've got. The first group had already left a few minutes earlier. Andy and I had just started to roll through Calais, knowing this group would catch us up. GPS gremlins had started already, and they will continue for the rest of the weekend. I knew that my route was correct, and I was sticking to it regardless of what everyone else would do. My plan for the day was to have no plan. Just go with the flow and switch between the groups. But I would aim to take time to pay my respects at appropriate points when they presented themselves. those of you that follow GCN, you may have noticed that this route is the same as one that Hank completed with Two Strangers on a budget of just €100. We're not planning to be that tight. Well, having said that, one of us will definitely try. We left Calais this morning, so quiet roads, flat, little headwind on the way out, and then so we'll just stop for a few little bits to look at, and then we're going to go towards the coast and into Dunkirk. Where's Wolfie? Where's Wolfie?
Where's Wolfie?
On you up. It was here we had time to think about the Battle of Dunkirk. This was a critical moment for Britain and the Allies. Operation Dynamo was the evacuation of the British and other Allied forces from Dunkirk, which was seen as a near miracle because in 9 days there was more than 338,000 soldiers evacuated. The evacuation involved hundreds of naval and civilian vessels, but one thing that echoes to this day is a powerful speech.
We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Nigel, do we have a breakaway out the front?
We do have a breakaway at the front.
Let's have a look.
Very poor one. Normal suspect.
So it's the fun that we're going to hang Wolfie out for the entire day?
Yeah.
You decided you didn't break, right? If we go on to the
Been so long, been so long. Why you keeping me waiting? All I want, all I want, we are
Has this crossed into Belgium now? Have a Landeren. The other group are about 2 minutes ahead, so group 1 is catching them up. Hello. Popper Ring has a long history dating back to medieval times, but it's most known for its time during the Great War. Known simply as Pop by the British Army, it was a gateway to the battlefields. Situated just behind the front line, and only one of 2 towns in Belgium not under German occupation. It was essential for the distribution of supplies and troop movement, and home to the largest evacuation hospital in the area. Over 3,000 Allied soldiers during the Great War were sentenced to death by execution, mainly for deserting their posts or acts as cowardice. Of the total number sentenced, only 346 were executed. Located in the town hall is a preserved prison cell and an execution post in the outside courtyard. It was here that 25 British and 2 Canadian soldiers were executed. A number of those are buried in the cemetery. Well disciplined group, this one. We were heading towards Ypres. This and the surrounding area I'd visited before, including many bunkers, trench systems, monuments and cemeteries, all of which have been well preserved and looked after, but a stark and sometimes harrowing reminder of the past. I would recommend taking time to explore the surrounding areas. Can't leave you out, Charlie.
I could have sworn I saw somebody signalling left.
I was doing a trap, sorry.
Ypres was the site of 3 major battles during World War I. In 1914, the German forces tried to advance through Belgium to reach the English Channel. The long fighting prevented any breakthrough, resulting in heavy losses on both sides. The second battle occurred in 1915, and it was where the first large-scale use of poison gas was used in warfare. This caused significant Allied losses due to being caught by surprise and a lack of protection.
Well, building.
The third battle, known as Passchendaele, occurred in 1917 with an aim to break through the German lines. This was fought in an area that was prone to heavy rain and is remembered for its harsh and muddy conditions. The amount of casualties that suffered and died in this area is incomprehensible. After the Great War, the city was rebuilt to resemble its pre-war state. I like adventures. Meningate is one of 4 memorials dedicated to the missing British and Commonwealth soldiers that were killed in this area. Its inauguration ceremony was held on the 24th of July 1927. The memorial bears the names of over 55,000 soldiers who have never been found and have no grave. Every evening the traffic is stopped and a ceremony is held under the memorial's arches, where buglers from the Last Post Association sound the last post. There was a period during World War II where the city was occupied by the Germans and the parade was held in Brockwood Military Cemetery in Surrey. Since early 2023 there's been restoration works being undertaken to guarantee the long-term preservation of the memorial, ready for the centenary in 2027. Tyncott Cemetery is situated to the northeast of Ypres. It is here where Commonwealth, French, Belgian and German forces fought, almost continuously throughout the First World War. It is now the largest Commonwealth War cemetery in the world in terms of burials. There are 11,961 Commonwealth servicemen of the First World War buried or commemorated in this cemetery. The name Tyncott is said to come from Northumberland Fusiliers, seeking a resemblance between the many German concrete pillboxes on this site and the typical Tyneside workers' cottages known as Tyncotts. It wouldn't have been too far from here where the poem In Flanders Fields was written.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row.
What was witnessed was poppies growing on a scarred battlefield. This inspired the use of a poppy as a symbol of remembrance.
Bulldog in the bloke's garden.
Oh yeah.
Very good, Keith, like that.
Tractor! It was around this point the group started taking different choices of route. Initially I'd followed, even though my GPS said otherwise. Just around the corner when everyone turned off, I stuck with my GPS and took a different route. Initially I thought they would rejoin further along in the town, but this wasn't the case.
Don't have to ask where Wolfie is this time because where's the group? So I'm following the route. I think they're behind me somewhere. Pulled over for a bit to wait for them, but they didn't seem to appear. I was definitely ahead of them. So who knows? Maybe the routes are different. I don't care, because you know I like adventures. So I've not got long until I get down to Lille. So it's been a good day. Good group of people. Capture everyone. And a bit of fun. So these type of cycle lanes have been really excellent today. Getting closer to Lille, getting very busy around here, lots of traffic.
And as if by magic, I rejoined the group along this canal. I'd ridden about 10 miles solo and it was a perfect regroup for me. I learned some of the dramas the group had whilst separated.
It hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to grey as you fade away.
The bit I hadn't anticipated, as we closed on Lille, the city got busier, much busier than I had imagined. Our next step was to ride to the Porte de Paris. We hadn't planned anything for the evening, mainly down to the dynamics of our accommodation. We were split between 3 hotels in the city, which were quite far apart, so it was a bit harder for us to make plans.
Merci beaucoup.
And it had been nearly 8 hours since we left Calais, so it had been a long day by this point.
Really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way.
Andy and I were the only ones in our particular hotel, so we decided to make a move and get ourselves sorted. Everyone else went off for a well-earned drink, and we'll meet up later that evening.
You felt that way. Guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long.
Our hotel was a significant improvement on our first night. This time we had 2 plug sockets. After visiting the hotel bar, we went out and met up with a group of our friends. Top food, top company in a city that's well worth a visit. What shocked us is our waitress didn't even want a tip when paying. But it was time to rest up for a final day. Up bright and early to go to Roubaix, so Andy's still in the room. We're in a different hotel to everybody else. Finding my way out en route to Roubaix. I'll meet up with the other guys there.
Great little cycle track this.
It was quiet on this pleasant Sunday morning. I was moving along nicely on the cycle highway. There wasn't too much traffic, so it was easy to get across the many crossings. Although we will definitely not have the same look on the way back. It was time to check out the velodrome. Caged animal over here.
Okay, I've just locked myself in.
I rode around the velodrome with Group 2 a few times. The surface was quite dusty and didn't offer too much grip. However, it was a little easier for me having 40mm gravel tyres on. I then waited for Group 1 just to do it again.
Going for a detour. Gosh. Everyone lost to me with my double handlebar.
There was a lot of stop-start riding through Lille and the outskirts. It was okay, but it was taking a little bit longer than we'd anticipated. The sign said it was a restaurant, but it definitely wasn't. So the French version of Carousel is not that entertaining, but was a good merry-go-round to leave. The group then rode a few more minutes to Bayeux and found something to eat and drink. Both Andy and I didn't stay long and started to make our own way back towards Calais as a duo. Just beyond this point, the route was taking us on the busy 642 dual carriageway, so I navigated a detour that kept us away from the road, but still towards Hazebrook.
Very busy road. Also got a side wind to contend with. ha ha!
The skies were getting greyer and we knew the rain was coming, but I kept a constant pace,
The wind's strong.
even in the wind. So it was time for a refuel stop, and we didn't want to wait around long, for two reasons. One, to beat the bad weather, or reduce it at least, and the second, to get on an earlier ferry. So this stop was spot on for us and we continued towards Calais. So unlike the previous day, this had been different to ride. The roads were much more busier, particularly after leaving Lille, with not so many cycle paths available. We had the detour to deal with away from the dual carriageway, which was the most sensible thing to do. And certainly by this part it was a lumpy one, with multiple ups and downs.
Lots of cheeky little hills along this. Short.
If I was to ride this route again back to Calais, I would seek out an alternate route, but we trusted the GCN route.
Just starting to rain.
Lovely!
It was okay, but I think with a bit of planning work, it could be improved for the better.
Nearly back to the port.
Just a few last checks of navigation before the heavens started to open up.
My heart started twitching when I saw that.
The road surface was visibly covered in oil, the queues were long at the port, but we managed to persuade our way through the lorry check-in desk, probably due to us looking like two drowned rats.
You can go on your bike. Thank you.
Good.
And that was us back on the ferry. The bikes were secured and a prime seat was taken to watch the ferry loading. The rest of the group were caught out in that rain, but thankfully they were not too far behind. As we sailed, it gave us time to reflect on what an amazing weekend we'd had, eating great food, enjoying the riding and the scenery, and shared amongst great friends. But most importantly, remembering the fallen, those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. And our thoughts are with them.
Thank you.
Seeing as you're still watching, please give it a like and a subscribe. If you've not done so already, remember it's free. It's a real good job we came back on an earlier ferry because the van had a flat tyre, so that was another mini adventure in itself.